Hey, I'm Rhiannon and this is Travel Talking, the Travel Talk podcast. Travel Talk is the app that helps you connect with fellow travellers wherever you are in the world. We are the voice of real travellers, discovering the world one country at a time, with a few guests joining us and an entire planet to cover.
Go your own way.
All right, hi everyone. Welcome back to Travel Talking. This is episode 4 of season 2. Got Joe here with Rhiannon. How are you doing, Rhiannon?
I'm good, Joe. Really excited that summer's here finally.
Oh, me too. I mean, apart from the fact that I've worn jeans today and I know you've worn black trousers, so we're both absolutely sweltering in the heat wave. It's good to finally get some sunshine and for it to not be quite so muggy as well.
Yeah, and what we've been seeing on our Travltalk.co website is some pretty interesting stories of travellers across Europe at the moment enjoying that sun, right?
Yeah, the European summer is just looking incredible and I need to start booking my flights and having some of that myself.
But this week we're here to talk about road tripping, right?
Yes. Yeah. So obviously when you think of summer in the Northern Hemisphere, you think of, road tripping, whether it's in a van or on a bike or in a car. So this week we're talking to our contributor, Elise, who we've spoken to before about being a
travel nanny.
Yes, that's it. I was trying to find the word au pair and it was not coming to my mind. We've spoken to her before about being an au pair, but she has now with her partner actually bought a van and is road tripping around Europe. So we're going to hear all about how that's been and all of the little details about how to do it, how to plan, how to pack, who drives.
I'm really excited about it. In fact, she's already written a few articles for us on Travltalk.co, hasn't she, covering off the planning and I guess how she started on the road. But we get to talk to her firsthand and kind of drill down into what you need to know if you're thinking of doing this yourself and certainly what it takes really to buy a van and take it out on the road and start your journey.
Travel Talk, we're like Tinder for travel without the fucking. Search for Travel Talk on the App Store. That's Travel Talk without the E. Go your own way.
So now we're talking to Elise, who's one of our contributors at Travltalk.co, who recently bought and renovated a van, which she's now driving across Europe with her partner. Hey, Elise, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So where are you at the moment?
So currently in Greece, in Zakynthos, on one of the Greek islands.
Does that mean you took the van across on the ferry?
Yeah. So we had to get the ferry across from Italy, so in Brindisi, and then across down to Igoumenitsa in Greece. And then we drove down the coast once we got to the coastline of Greece, and then we had to get another ferry from mainland across to Zakynthos, which was only a short one, but still. So 2 ferries.
So how long have you been on the road now?
I think it's coming up to a month and a half, around 40-something days.
Where did you start, actually, and what countries have you driven through already before you got to Greece?
Yeah, so obviously started in London, then we drove from London to Luxembourg was our first stop, so we just had lunch there and had to tick that one off. And then down through France and then through Italy and then, across the ferry, and just took a couple of hours to get down to Greece to the ferry port.
Cool. Sounds like a bit of an adventure.
Yeah, it's been so awesome so far. I can't believe how fast it's gone already. Can't believe we've been gone out of London for, a month and a half already. It's gone so quick.
Okay, so who's been doing most of the driving?
Well, I'd love to say we're splitting the driving evenly, but as expected, Tom has been doing most of the driving. I don't mind driving on, obviously the opposite side of the road, and I've done heaps of it, but now that, we're driving this big van and it is really old, it's really slow and roads are so skinny. And so it just requires a lot of concentration, which is something I'm not good at. So I just get over it after 2 hours of fully concentrating on the road, driving that big thing.
So Jo's told me that she prefers to be a passenger. I've done a fair bit of driving myself in Europe, and I can tell you that I'm from Australia originally, so we drive on the left, and then getting to Europe, I've found some pretty crazy drivers. What do you find it's like being both a passenger and a driver in Europe?
Oh yeah, both are equally as stressful, being a passenger or a driver. There's a lot of, that's probably the most thing we've had little tiffs about, because we get up each other about being too close to the other side or too close to another car, which when you're driving you're like, it was fine, don't worry about it. And I've nearly got my foot through the floor because I think it's too close to this car and vice versa. And he's like, it's fine.
Oh my God, the arguments while driving. It's pretty hard to, well, it's a great test, isn't it, for a relationship? If you can do a road trip together in a country that you don't know and still come up the other side loving each other, that's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, so far so good. Fingers crossed for the rest of it.
All right, lovely. So let's talk a bit about how you planned this whole trip. So you've bought a van rather than, renting cars and doing everything that way. So, what was the main decision there?
Look, to be honest, there was a whole lot of no planning, really. We kind of, like I said last time, we just kind of came home and we were like, that would be really cool to do it. And then next minute we literally had a van and we were renovating it. And then we knew we wanted to go around Europe. We don't really have a plan. We still don't really have a plan. But obviously, if you do want to do a road trip, it's so expensive to hire a car for starters. You have to drop it. If you want it to be any cheaper, you drop it back to the same place that you had it in. And, some places don't even allow you to rent a car that long. And, I think that was the best option money-wise, and to be able to make it our own. I think that was the way it would have worked out best, really. And then hopefully resale value, we'll earn some money back, which you'd never would on flights and accommodation, just going through Europe. So fingers crossed we can sell her at the end of it and get some money back to get us home to Australia.
How much did you pay for the van in the first place?
Oh, look, it was nothing. It was like £1,400.
Bargain.
Yeah. And then obviously when we went down to Cornwall, unfortunately it didn't work out too well for us and the clutch went on it. And so that was another £500 for a new clutch. But, that's unfortunately part of it when you buy an older van, like just luck of the draw, really. But, well, whatever. It's fine now.
Probably better you found that out before you left for Europe, though.
Yeah, definitely. It was like, even though it was a bit of a pain in the ass, it was so fine when we were down in Cornwall. Really couldn't have worked out any better. It was a long weekend and we, got stuck, and luckily there was a guy that knew a guy and he was working on the long weekend, which no one else does, obviously. So yeah, it was actually really lucky, and the guy that worked on it was so nice and, didn't rip us off or anything, even though he worked long weekend on it. And we, very lucky. Could have happened in the middle of Greece somewhere and we wouldn't have known where we were, or, could have anywhere really. So I think, count our lucky stars.
Yeah, you can get so ripped off by mechanics and stuff. So it's good if it happens early on. And now, you've got a nice shiny new clutch for the rest of the journey.
Exactly.
So how do you pack for something like this? Because obviously in the van, I know you said in your blog post that you don't have running water, you don't have a toilet. Like, do you have to just ram it full of all sorts of provisions?
Yeah, oh God, there's a lot of shit in there. I can't believe how much shit there is. But yeah, because you just need a lot of stuff, it's clothes that you would normally take on a Europe trip, but then it's, your bedding and an extra sheet and, all your cooking stuff, gas stuff, toiletries, work stuff. We've got a few things in case something happens to the van, and oil, add all that, tables, chairs, everything that you want to take camping, and it's all in one thing, in one small van. So I'm glad we put extra storage in there.
And out of interest, how many people do you think you can comfortably fit in your van? The only reason I ask is I actually did a huge road trip through Australia with two Israeli guys, and we bought a van for $1,200 and we painted it. We put flowers on the outside, and, our plan was to sleep in the van, and we got actually out of Adelaide, and on the first night we realised all three of us did not fit very comfortably in that van.
Oh no, but it's got 3 seats, but bedding wise, we've talked about this. Obviously it's got a kind of king size mattress, so if you really wanted to, another girl maybe that's short, you could definitely squeeze another one in the bed. And then across our bench top, I reckon you could even add a mattress of some sort if you wanted, and add an extra person. I wouldn't want to do it long term, but if it was, we had some friends coming or whatever and they wanted to come and jump in with us for the night, I think absolutely you could. I think you'd need a couple of drinks before you did it, but so you all passed out, but that would work out fine.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to get stuck just staring at the ceiling of the van all night and not sleeping.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so with the actual driving, obviously you said it can be a little bit hairy on some of the roads. So, I mean, how do you manage driving generally in a foreign city? Like, you know, where do you park? How do you work out like all of the local rules when it's not usually in English?
Yeah, so I guess so far we've been pretty lucky. Most stuff is, you know, had English to it, or if not, we've just kind of used our navman and hope for the best. But when we went into Luxembourg, it was so busy, like driving, again, just like really skinny streets. We had to drive around for ages trying to find parking. So, you know, we drove, it was meant to be a 4-hour drive. It ended up like 6.5 or something just because it's so slow. And all we wanted to do was just get out and have something to eat. But we had to drive around for another half an hour trying to find somewhere to park in the middle of the city. So that also wasn't that appealing. But, you know, that's one of the downsides, I guess, of, you know, having a bigger van and driving your way through Europe rather than just rocking up on a flight and getting a taxi to the city.
Is parking expensive, and have you got any parking tickets yet?
Parking is expensive. We've tried to avoid tolls and paid parking where we can, but sometimes it's just unavoidable. So I think it's around like €8 to €10, I reckon, for a few hours. And then, we got a parking fine in Monterosso, €45.
Oof.
Yeah. But it got moved. We all got to move along in the morning. There was us and another van next to us by the police. And because there's basically parking that's paid for parking, and then behind it is all free parking. And so obviously everyone parks in the free parking. So they told us we had to move to the paid parking. We didn't. We just moved the car a bit further down in the free parking and then came back from the day with a fine, which was to be expected. But
So what is the biggest cost of running a van? I mean, you said that you spent £1,400 to buy it, and obviously parking adds up, a bit of petrol. You know, is it a cost-efficient way of getting around Europe, and what is it roughly costing you, and what is the biggest expense?
yeah, I mean, I think we could have definitely done our renovation cheaper, even though it was under £500. You know, we got a lot of free stuff. We tried to recycle and reuse where we could. However, I insisted on having it nicely decorated and painted and all that stuff. So that's where we kind of spent more money just doing that stuff. So I guess that part of it. But realistically, I think petrol is your biggest, or diesel for us is your biggest, you know, outgoing cost. But I guess in a way you have to factor that in with the amount of money you would spend flying around Europe with, you know, flights and then paying for accommodation. You know, I think it will end up kind of, you know, cheaper really, because you know, if you want to stay in a nice hotel, that's, you know, a few £100 or whatever, you know, and you're saving that. It's a week's worth of petrol, hopefully, depending on where you're going. And I think like petrol and diesel is your biggest outlay.
Okay, and how does it work with insurance? Do you just get your insurance in the UK, or do you have to get separate stuff, or does it come under the travel insurance bucket?
Yeah, so that, I guess that's also probably something else that's quite expensive. So I think our insurance was around £400-ish for 6 months for the both of us to drive. So then if we wanted to extend it, obviously we would just extend more. However, with the insurance that we found, it doesn't cover you for some parts of Europe. So, for example, Montenegro and Albania. So we're going to have to look into some form of insurance when we go there, just for a few extra days, so we can cover ourselves doing that.
Interesting. So you were in any way nervous about that? I mean, I know that obviously that's the whole point of insurance, isn't it? To protect you. But obviously you're in these foreign environments, driving on other sides of the road with, you know, signs that you can't even understand. And I can promise you I've had some hairy moments. Certainly when I was driving in Bulgaria, it's mainly because, you know, the other drivers seem to not always respect the lines in the road when we do. Obviously,
Yep.
that's not to say that that's just in Bulgaria. I just found in general there's just a different approach in Europe to some of the road rules, and everyone kind of respects that because they know that that's the case when they're from a country like that. But when you kind of come in from certainly Australia or New Zealand, where I know for sure in Australia that our road rules are so heavily enforced that it kind of makes me even more nervous in another country. How do you deal with all of that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely agree with you that, the roads in Europe are a little bit more crazy and everyone seems to not really be bothered too much about their side of the road or taking over, especially our van on a corner that you're just like, why are you doing that right now? Surely you could wait until there's an overtaking lane. So, yeah, they are. I definitely agree with that. But, I mean, I just hope for the best, really, when it comes to that. I think my biggest worry is, something happening to like getting broken into because that's where all of our stuff is and that's everything that we own now that hasn't got shipped back to Australia is in that van. As much as we take our valuables with us and we've got a lock for the car and that kind of thing, it's still that's a big worry for me. I worry about that, not my precious clothes being taken or something like that.
What do you do to prevent yourself from being robbed?
So I guess just trying to park in places that are a bit more, open and crowded so that there's more people around and they can see the van and that kind of thing. My biggest worry is actually having stuff inside the van stolen. As much as we take everything with us, if we go for a walk or something that's valuable, there's still stuff in there that you wouldn't want to get taken, or just to have someone, go through your home essentially without you knowing, I think would be very weird.
Do you have an alarm on the car?
No, it's too old. Doesn't have an alarm, unfortunately.
Totally understand your fear because in America we had a convertible, an old Mustang, and actually I refused to take it with me and my travel partner because I said, look, that's going to get robbed really easily. And so we ended up actually hiring a car with a better alarm because we knew that we were going to be driving up the coast of California and having to leave the car in the middle of cities where we weren't convinced that all of our stuff wasn't going to get robbed. So it was one of those things where the idea in my mind of driving down the Pacific Highway in a convertible was wonderful, but the reality was that actually we needed a vehicle that kept us safe and also our things secure.
Yeah, definitely. I think ideally something with an alarm would be great, but when you're buying a car that cheap, it doesn't always, it's not always the option, unfortunately. But I guess we don't really plan on going to too many cities, I don't think. We're going to try and avoid the cities and then just hang out on the coast realistically. So fingers crossed that helps.
Okay, awesome. And you've paused at the moment, haven't you, in Greece? I know your next piece for Travltalk.co is going to be about how you're stopping to work for a few weeks.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So we just picked up some work here and plan on staying here for 6 weeks. We're nearly finished the 6 weeks here, so we're back on the road. And then after this, we're going from here across to Athens, where we've decided to leave the car. We're going to fly across to Turkey and do Cappadocia and Istanbul for a week and then fly back over to Athens and then start our road trip again from there.
Okay, awesome. So, yeah, is it just a bit sort of logistically easier to do flights for that?
Yeah, so we originally decided that we were going to drive from London down to Greece and take our time doing that and then possibly drive to Turkey and end up there and kind of finish our trip there. But then when we got the jobs here, it kind of changed our plans. So we had to drive down from London straight to Greece, and then we still wanted to go to Turkey. So we thought while we're here, basically, we may as well.
And we asked you earlier how many people you can comfortably fit in a van. Obviously, it's just you and your partner. But do you kind of break it up by trying to stay in accommodation? Obviously, you've stopped for 6 weeks in Greece, but do you like to have a tent with you, or do you sort of book a hotel every now and then for the comfort?
Yeah, so at the moment we're not in the van. We're lucky that we've been given accommodation with our job. But on the way, obviously I think it was like 12 or 13 days or something it took us to get from London to Greece. And we didn't stay anywhere else except for the van. We spent one night in a in a campsite, which was actually really nice to be able to have a shower because we hadn't showered in like a week properly until we, spent €10 and to jump in the campsite, and it was the best €10 we spent the whole time, I think.
Yeah, it was funny when I read your last article. I hadn't even twigged in my head that obviously there's no shower in the van. Like I hadn't, thought that you were like, so now we're on our 5th day without showering. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. Like how else would you be washing?
Yeah, well, it's funny because, I always thought it would be fine, once we got down to here, because we'll be, swimming every day and there'll be, showers that you could just use at the beach. But it was actually through Italy and stuff. It was really cold still. So, the last thing you want to do was go swimming. And then if you found somewhere it was like freezing cold or they weren't open yet because it wasn't the start of the season. So, yeah, we kind of just had to make do with a bucket of water.
Yeah, I think summer's definitely taken its time this year.
Yeah.
But it's now blisteringly hot, so we've got what we wished for.
Yeah, exactly.
How about campsites? Is it easy to drive up and stay at a campsite, and are there facilities throughout Europe sort of similar to what you find in Australia, for example?
Yeah, so I've traveled through Australia, like doing camping and like a road trip, not as easily accessible. There's not just campsites everywhere, like there is in Oz. But basically we use an app called Park by Night, and it gives you all of these, places that you can park for the night that are, you either have like places that are just car parks, or you have places that are car parks with a view, or just a space that's like a road, or then you've got actual campsites that you can pay for, or there's free campsites. So that app has actually been so good. We've used that a fair bit, which has been a bit of a lifesaver, really.
So you mentioned an app that was really helpful, and obviously Travltalk is an app, and that's what we're about. What other apps or other kind of things have you found digitally that have really helped you while you're driving around?
Definitely, obviously, your Google Maps is a big one.
Yeah, I can't live without that.
Because you need that. It's not, apart from those two apps, and then obviously the Travltalk app, we haven't really used too much, other things. We've been kind of just trying to, wing it and just see what happens and park if we find somewhere, and if we don't, we use the app and then go from there.
Have you used any like real maps, like actual paper maps? Because that's always quite fun, even though I don't understand them.
No, we haven't actually. We do have one actually, but it's just of the whole of Europe. Tom insisted on having it in the van, which it's just rolled up and packed away in the corner somewhere. So I don't know why we have it with us. But anyway, it's definitely not good enough to look on the map with, but definitely digital. Digital is best, I think.
How accurate are the Google Maps? I've certainly been in countries where you're like, oh, I'm just going to keep going down this road, and I swear I've almost ended up on the ends of the earth following what Google Maps is telling me the right way. Is it pretty good these days where you're going?
No, we've had a few incidents where it's taken us off a highway or something, and then we've done like a loop and got back on the highway. So, yeah, I don't really know what it's doing there actually.
Yeah, sometimes you just look at it, don't you? And you're like, well, I know where I need to go. I don't understand why you're not sending me that way. I've just come back from a weekend in the Peak District in North England, got completely lost on a moor because it's like footpaths rather than roads. And so Google Maps, I was like, okay, I'm lost. I'll just use Google. But Google had no idea how I was supposed to get back. So I had to just descend this moor and try not to fall down and just get back to a road. And then it was fine. But it's not always the perfect one, Google.
No, definitely helpful. But yeah, it has it's a bit hit and miss sometimes, I think.
Well, I think there's just logic too. I've always found it quite amusing because I started traveling way before there was such thing as Google Maps, and actual common sense can sometimes work. I went to Oslo last year with my housemate. We needed to get back to the city, and I could see the building in the distance, and I said, I think it's this way. And he's got Google Maps out, and he's like, no, it's this way. And I said, but the building is over there. So sometimes I think it's best just to rely on common sense, especially when you're driving, because it can be dangerous too if you're constantly checking the maps, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's helpful with having, two people, of course, because, one of us drives and Tom drives and I do all the mapping.
Damn straight. The importance of a co-pilot. Sometimes I think the co-pilot is more important than the driver, actually, because I don't know, I've done a fair bit of co-piloting as well. And I think I learned my job was to announce what was about to happen in a minute's time.
Yeah, well, as the co-pilot, I'm definitely going to sit here and say that's absolutely the most important job.
Exactly. I take my role as a passenger quite seriously, so I don't sleep in cars. So I'm always there for good chat. I bring lots of snacks because I think that's very important. Always got lots of water. And then there's obviously the playlist, Are you controlling like the music and all of that stuff while you guys are on the road, or does your van not quite have that capability?
Oh, yeah, he's not very happy about that. But yeah, I am in control of the music when he's driving.
And how do you stay awake? I mean, are you allowed to sleep as the co-pilot, or, I mean, do you have little rules in place for each other?
Yeah, look, I am unfortunately not a very good sleeper when it comes to traveling. So I don't nap. Doesn't matter how tired I am. I can't sleep for on the go. So I am awake the whole time. I do close my eyes sometimes and just have a little rest, but I'm always awake for conversation if he's sitting there bored. But it is hard. I wish I could sleep, and he would let me. He sleeps if I drive sometimes, but I think he gets a bit too stressed out with me driving. He can't actually sleep.
Yeah, it's hard to sleep when you're scared for your life, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I found that when I was doing a Kentucky tour across Europe. I was obviously exhausted, and every other day we were on the road for about 8 hours in this coach. And I was like, why can't I sleep on the coach? I was sat there the whole time. I can't wait to get to our next destination so that I can get to my hotel room and have a nap. And it's just such a waste of time. So I've had to, really get like good travel pillows and all of that stuff so that it's not quite as painful an experience. But at least it's nice for Tommy if you're awake, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. He's lucky, although he tries to have a sleep here and there. But yeah, like I said, doesn't happen very often. Just try and wait until we get back. I wish I could. It would make it go much quicker, the drive, if I just woke up 4 hours later and we were there.
But he might not be happy with you for that.
Oh well, he'll survive.
So you said you're heading to Turkey, and then are you back to London after that? So does that mean you'll fly to Turkey, come back to Greece, and then get the car, or how do you get the car back to London?
Yeah, so I mean, the original plan was to drive to Athens from here, Zakynthos, fly across to Turkey, fly back to Athens, and then drive. We're thinking kind of Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia, Croatia, Slovenia, and then up to like Austria, Switzerland kind of way. And then from there, we don't really have a plan. And we were thinking of going back. We planned to go back to Australia as my visa's finished, but now we're thinking we might go back to London for a little while because Tom has a passport so he can work. So yeah, maybe try and, just live off his wages for a bit and go from there.
So how much longer is left for you on the road then? Because you mentioned quite a few countries there. So does that mean you're going to go for another 6 months, or are you going to try and sort of fit those in for the rest of summer?
I think maybe around try and aim to get back to London maybe October-ish, around that time. We don't really have a plan, but yeah, if we want to go back, if Tom wants to go back to work, I think, you can't leave it too long. Between, 6 months is a pretty long time to go back to work of a holiday. So we're just going to see what happens and go from there. But I'd say, around October.
Awesome. So still a good long time left then. That'd be good.
Yeah, exactly. Still a decent holiday.
Yeah. So what do you wish you knew before you started your trip? I guess the weather was a big one, wasn't it? With not being able to shower the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, actually, that's true. Yeah, that, and it was actually really cold. Yeah, we stopped in at a national park in Italy, and there was like snow on the mountain still. So it was really, really cold, and we didn't take like a thick blanket or anything like that to sleep with. We only just have a top sheet and then kind of like a loose kind of throw because we knew it was going to be hot. And then now we were freezing cold, I had every single layer of clothing that I owned on, and the only couple of pairs of socks we packed, and some of Tom's clothes, and I had a scarf in there which I accidentally didn't know I had, and yeah, so we used that and then sticky taped the vent holes in the van up for the night because the air was coming in the vent holes. So yeah, I think weather was a big one. But, that's fine. We're not going to have to deal with that again. So it's only a few days of being a bit uncomfortable and it's all good.
And anything else? I mean, we touched a little bit on how much it cost. Has it sort of lined up with your expectations in that you thought it would be more cost efficient? Are there expenses that you weren't expecting?
I think it's definitely been cheaper than we kind of expected it to be with the whole like food and that kind of thing. We haven't spent that much, in cooking and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's worked out cheap that way. So it's been cheaper in that way. And then petrol or diesel has kind of worked out what we expected already. Ferries have been much more expensive when you kind of add the car to it. So that's annoying because, you can get it for 10 quid or something across from Zach Ethanos. But if you add the car to it, it brings it up to like 90. So that hurts a little bit. But again, you're saving on accommodation. So it all works out in the end.
I guess the hope is that you make some of the money back at the end, right? When you can sell the van. Like, obviously, whenever you buy a vehicle, it's automatically worth less than you've bought it for, like, as soon as you leave and as soon as you drive off. But because you've renovated it, like, hopefully you should be able to get a good price for it at the end, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the hope. Hopefully it lasts that long and we can sell it in the end. Hopefully we'd be honestly happy if we just kind of made back what we spent on doing it. So, we'll see what happens. We're not really bothered if we sell it, great. If we don't, it's kind of, that's just life and we've had a great time with it anyway.
Yeah, and then you've got your funds for the next trip as well.
Yeah, exactly. Get us home.
And who knows, maybe you can sell it on Travltalk.
That's right. We were thinking that anyway. Yeah, try and whack it up there and see if anyone's interested.
That's awesome. Well, Elise, thanks so much for joining us today and giving us an insight into what it's like to be on the road with a van that you've bought and taken across to Europe. I think I've learned quite a lot as well.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great. Good to talk to you girls again.
Yeah, great to talk to you. And we'll look forward to your next piece on Travltalk.co.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Elise. Bye.
Travltalk, the app to help you meet like-minded travellers nearby. Search for Travltalk on the App Store. That's Travltalk without the E. Go your own way.
That's it for this week. I hope we've inspired you on your travels or maybe given you the push to take off. In either case, don't forget to download the Travltalk app from your app store. This has been Travel Talking and I've been Rhiannon Monks. We'll be back with more and until then.